Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. After the news you need to know about, we run you through the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions. Lots to talk about in today's show. Again, not the most positive news if you're a Miami Dolphins fan. I mean, we don't really know much. There hasn't been a lot of exciting news. Obviously, Deebo Samuel was traded today. There's really no this guy could go to Miami, or it's mostly like everybody, so some people might leave. This is the most news that we've gotten, but I'm excited. Hopefully we can rebuild this offensive line in some form or fashion. But let's start with the first news story. This first news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Miami Dolphins update on the Tyreek Hill situation. Cameron Wolfe of ESPN confirmed that the 9-year veteran Tyreek Hill did suffer a broken wrist. The surgery did undergo surgery, but he should be fine for training camp. So, not that I don't even know if that was the story, whether he had it or not. The point is, the man's fine and he's going to be ready for training camp. But there's also some other Tyreek Hill news. Cameron Wolfe also reported at NFL.com, not ESPN. The Dolphins, this again comes from Cameron Wolfe, the Dolphins did not unequivocally state that they are prepared to retain Hill after the January dust-up. So it seems like they have one foot in and one foot out. They're at least going to test the waters on a potential trade for Tyreek Hill. They can't, it would depend on how the money, I think that's the most important thing, is the money. And how much are they going to get out from under it? And then you got to think about the draft compensation. They already have a ton of picks in this draft. They don't want to take that $28 million cap hit for him to play on another football team, though. So I don't know. I still think it's pretty unlikely that he's traded. If they could somehow dump the actual cap hit, that would be the only way that it would make sense for them to do it. And I just don't think that's going to happen. So yeah, it's basically the same thing that we've been hearing. It's like, oh, will they trade him one day? Who knows? Probably not. But we'll see. It doesn't seem like there's I don't think they shouldn't be. I don't think the organization should be happy with Tyreek Hill. He didn't play well last year. He was an off the field headache. Why would you? He doesn't fit the system. The system had to be changed to fit him, and Mike McDaniel did a really good job of doing that. But him being on the team, there are limitations. He is not a perfect scheme fit at all. He can't run block. He's actually really not good after the catch anymore, at all. Ever since he was never that great at it. Ever since he became a Dolphin, So he can't block on tunnel screens. He can't block on any kind of screen. He can't block in the run game. There's not a whole lot of going for him when it comes to the fit in Miami. And we've seen it for 3 years, 3 seasons. The negatives are starting to outweigh the positives. So moving on from that, Javon Holland is the next news story. Seems to be one of the bigger names of the combine. Now, this is from multiple sources. If you just Google Javon Holland, if you're a Dolphins fan, there's about, I want to say, 7 or 8 different beat writers writing about how their team and the team that they cover is going to be interested in Javon Holland. From the Colts, the Panthers, the Bills. There was another weird team on there that I can't remember. Oh, the Cowboys. Apparently the Cowboys are really into him. The market seems to be $15 million a year. Will the Dolphins match that? Who knows? Probably not. So it kind of seems like he's leaving, which isn't great. He's someone you would think you would have already locked up after his first 2 seasons in the league. You're not waiting till he hits free agency. Instead, they want to extend players like Jalen Ramsey, which doesn't make any sense. It's never made any sense. That just, even thinking about it, is weird. They do have a bunch of young players, though. That is, Jalen Phillips is the biggest one that they're going to have to pay. You can't lose Jalen Phillips. If they lose Jalen Phillips, then they might as well just start over. Javon Holland is not a good step in the right direction at all. He should have been in Miami. He's for the most of his prime, and he's just getting into his prime, and he's leaving. So that's great. So you can't have everything. It just this next news story is a little bit more positive. Here are the 5 prospects who reportedly met with the Miami Dolphins at the Combine. Xavier Restrepo is awesome that he met with the Dolphins. I really hope this happens. I've said this many times, but I don't even really know where he's projected to go. But man, he would be a great fit with Tua. And he's exactly what Tua needs. A guy who knows where to be, great route runner, really good after the catch, can block, physical, he's got a great attitude. He's played in Miami, for God's sakes. So Xavier Restrepo would be awesome. He's one of my favorite players in the draft. And he's a really, really, really good player. He isn't the biggest guy in the world, but he's a perfect fit for the system. Catching screens, doing all the crazy routes in the middle of the field, is exactly what the Dolphins need. Ollie Gordon, the second, Oklahoma State, met with the Dolphins as well. He's looked at as a 4th-round prospect. I'm not completely familiar with him. Another running back, which would be weird. He had phenomenal stats in the Big 12. I've seen him play a little bit, but I don't know enough about him, and I don't really know why they would do this anyway. A 4th-round pick isn't bad. He's a fast player, so that's always comparable. Tyler Barron, Miami. Interesting. This could be interesting. Another Miami player. Even though the Hurricanes defense wasn't great, there were some really talented players on that defense, especially up front. He had 5.5 sacks in 13 games, 6.5 tackles for loss. He could be a nice player. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's not I wouldn't say a position that Miami, out of all the positions that they desperately need. I don't know where he's projected to go. I wouldn't say, probably in the later rounds, but they did meet with him. So Tyler Barron, Ollie Gordon, and Xavier Restrepo, it's clutch. The next one is Gray Zabel, North Dakota State. He was the Associated Press's first-team All-American tackle. If they're not I don't know what they would do with him. He met with Mike McDaniel. North Dakota really always produces really good linemen, which is a great offensive lineman. He had 36 consecutive starts. Has had experience at every position outside of center, which is perfect for the Dolphins. This is exactly what they need to start investing in, and this would be a great pickup for them. So he could play guard, which is great. We know that they're pretty confident in Patrick Paul, it seems like, with some of the stuff that's been reported. So this makes a lot of sense. Highly decorated offensive lineman, comes from a great offensive lineman school. That's a big thumbs up. Gunnar Helm, Texas. Interesting. This is also a later round pick. I like him. He's definitely not the most polished player in the world, but he's a giant player. He's projected as a 2nd to 6th round pick, which is the widest. Yeah, that's crazy. That doesn't even make any sense. But he had 786 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns. Yeah, this is a talented player with a lot of physical gifts. So this makes sense that they would have met with him. Chris Greer likes Texas players. And I'm talking about the state of Texas. Granted, a lot of great players come from there. But we have drafted a lot of people out of the state of Texas in recent memory. Tight end, too, which would be weird. Jonnu Smith, it's not a position of, but he's got a huge upside. Giant human being, 6'5", really fast. Definitely what the Dolphins need in the red zone, athletic. there's a lot of really good tight ends in this draft. And interesting that there's only one offensive lineman on here. So that's 5 players. Out of all 5 of those, definitely Xavier Restrepo. And then I would say Gray Zabel or Zabel. Definitely Zabel. Anyway, yeah. I think he'd probably, those two, Xavier Restrepo would be a dream. I don't even know where he's projected to, I need to look that up. I don't know where people have him going. No way, I would say at least the second round. But he's such a good player. Definitely not a defensive end. I don't know. Interesting that they're meeting, but I mean, he's definitely not like a first round pick. So yeah, we left on some positive news. Definitely the most hype is the Restrepo thing, which is great. So so that's all. That's it for the news. You just want to shut it down and get off. I get it, but we're gonna go through some free agents here that I think are interesting, and it's not just offensive linemen. We're gonna go through pretty much all of the positions of need, starting with defensive tackle, which isn't a huge need. They have, they have a really good player, Zach Sealer. They have some question marks behind him, though. It's definitely a position of need, but it's not the most needed thing, but it's a position of need nonetheless. So out of everybody on this list, obviously Calais Campbell is a name that would be awesome if he came back. I don't think it would be that hard for the Dolphins to sell him on that necessarily. So that's definitely interesting. BJ Hill is another one that I would love. I mean, that's a great fit, especially in this system. He's a really good player, very underrated. I don't think he has the biggest market in the world. He's not going to be re-signed with Cincinnati. They have too many issues. They have a lot of players that they need to pay. He's definitely one of those guys who's just going to walk. But he's a really good player. He's dealt with some injuries in recent. I mean, he injured Tua. I forgot about that. But he's a good player. And he would be really good next to Zach Sealer. Don't know how that locker room dynamic would go. I'm sure that they would ask him questions about that. But yeah, he's a very, very good player. Milton Williams is another good player that would fit the system. Don't know what his market is, but obviously a Philadelphia Eagle, had a pretty decent year and definitely someone to keep your eye on. Levi Onwuzurike, another good player for the Detroit Lions. Could be interesting, especially in this system. They like bigger players. So, someone like that I don't think I think would be a good fit. Another really interesting name is Jeremiah Ledbetter from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Another good player. I like all of these guys, I think a little bit under the radar. So Levi isn't, but I would say some of these other guys. It's weird that I look at this list that I'm looking at has T.R. Tart number 1, which is crazy. T.R. Tart is not the best free agent. B.J. Hill is better than T.R. Tart. Jaron Reed is another interesting player. I just don't think he fits the system, and he's had some weird seasons in between. Seems like his best years are with Seattle for whatever reason. So yeah, I would say B.J. Hill, Onwuzurike, Ledbetter, B.J. Hill. Did I already say B.J. Hill? Milton Williams is the other one I didn't say. So those are some good defensive tackles, I think, in free agency. Now, I was going to make a list of these offensive linemen. It just kind of ended up being the same thing that we talked about before. Trey Smith is like the shooting star that hopefully will land in Miami. I doubt it. Ryan Kelly is another good player. He plays center, though, mostly. Or guard. No, I think they moved him to guard, if I'm not mistaken. So he would be a good fit. He's not the most athletic player, though. But that's fine. Drew Dahlman for the Falcons. We talked about him. He'd be a good pick. Pick up Will Fries, another great pickup. Mekhi Becton is one of my favorite players in free agency. Would be everything that the Dolphins would need. Is him and Trey Smith are like the perfect, like built perfectly for what they are lacking, which is physicality, setting the line of scrimmage, and they're good in pass protection. And they would bring, like I said, a physical attitude to the offensive side of the football. and really help the run game out. And that's where it all starts in this system. And it would also make the Dolphins bigger up front, which I think matters a lot. And they, especially in the division that we're in, and would help with the cold weather, getting the run game going, and really being able to put our will on opposing teams as opposed to it being the other way around, which I think is very important. And I think a player like Will Fries and Ryan Kelly, similar in that way too. So those are some of the names that Brandon Sheriff, like some of these other guys like Brandon Sheriff, Seitler, they're just a little bit older. I would like to, there's another good player on here, James Daniels from the Steelers. I just don't think he's good. He's younger too. Definitely another name to look for. But Mekhi Becton, that's a perfect fit. And then they could add another one in the draft. And but yeah, and Mekhi Becton, really young player, has had some injury problems. But I mean, that is like a steal of a pick, dude. Moving on from there, we have quarterbacks. So there's a lot of names on here like Russell Wilson, Mac Jones, Marcus Mariota, Mason Rudolph, Carson Wentz, Justin Fields. Justin Fields would be the dream. I still think him in this system would be really interesting. And physically, he's very gifted, and he played well for Pittsburgh. They don't have the best system in their offensive system is really not very creative and very old school in a lot of ways. Like, they didn't really use him in any creative ways, and I think Mike McDaniel was the complete opposite of that. So you have a lot of things that Justin Fields could do. Justin Fields, you could flip for a big, if you wanted to. If Tua gets hurt, he comes in and has a phenomenal year. You could flip him for picks. It gives you a lot of room to do a lot of things. So Justin Fields is definitely number one. After that, I don't really know. I don't really like any of these people. So yeah, I mean, maybe Mac Jones, reunite him with Tua. I think he's fine as a backup. He's definitely way better than what they've had. So I wouldn't be mad at that. I think Mac Jones and Justin Fields are pretty good. I don't like Marcus Mariota. Carson Wentz. Like, players like that is just, no. It's not, it's treading down the Mike White territory, and it's just not great. Safety is the next position. So this is interesting. I don't know if this is necessarily the place to address this. And honestly, the Dolphins have, God, what is his name? I can't remember his name. The player that we got out of Cal last year, who performed very well in preseason. Who knows how they feel about that group? Maybe they like him, and maybe they can. I don't know what they're gonna do with safety. Don't know how they feel about that. I know a lot of people love the safety class in this draft. Maybe they do as well. But if they do lose Holland, this is obviously going to be a huge need. Even if they keep Holland, they still are going to need to add to that positional group. So here are some of the names. First of all, most of these names don't really love. But Hufanga from the San Francisco 49ers, I think is a great system fit, especially in the box. He's a young player too. He's dealt with some injuries, but I think that's a great signing for the Dolphins, and that's a huge market. Young, could really come in and make a difference, and I think fits the system too. Trayvon Moehrig from the Las Vegas Raiders. Very good player, very athletic. Would be a great pickup. He's probably going to have a big market, and so that's probably why, it's not realistic, but very good player, young, and would be a great pickup for the Dolphins. Justin Simmons, not great. He's older. Don't really think that's the best move there. If they keep Holland, I wouldn't be mad at that, but they would just be doing the same thing they've been doing. I mean, Moehrig, if they just a hypothetical, or even Hufanga, that would be a great safety duo. But yeah, probably not going to happen. But I think Hufanga could happen, and obviously there's some connections with Mike McDaniel, who was there when he was there, I believe. So maybe that can happen. I think that's a good good pick. Linebacker is the next position. So this is also a position that would be like ice cream. Not necessarily what I think the Dolphins should focus on, but these are obviously, next to Jordan Brooks, they need somebody there. And this has been a really big problem for them for a long time, is the middle of the field. So this could be a step in the right direction. Plus the Ravens and Anthony Weaver, they like 2 middle linebackers on the field. And so this, which is why we're talking about this. So here are some of the names. There's a lot of really good players on this list. There really is. Some of the players that stand out to me immediately. Dre Greenlaw from the San Francisco 49ers. He is a superstar if he can stay healthy, and he's young. I don't really know what the market would be for him because he has dealt with all those injuries, but that would be like a dream come true if they were to get a player like that. He just has never really been able to stay healthy, so maybe he can for Miami 1 year or multiple years because he is young. So if that could be a home run of a hit, Dre Greenlaw. Some other names. Robert Spillane for the Raiders is a great pick. Would be a great pickup. He's an older player, but he's really good. I think he would fit the system. Physical, great leader. So I think he would be great in the system. Nick Bolton from the Kansas City Chiefs, phenomenal player. Again, another young player that still has a pretty high ceiling. Could definitely make a first team if he's not already made one. He's a great player. He's been a middle linebacker for defense. It's been really good for a long time. So I like Nick Bolton a lot. Physical, can set the line of scrimmage, and that's something that the Dolphins need. So hold on, I don't know. So we taught Dre Greenlaw, Spillane, Nick Bolton. Some other guys here. Zach Bond is a dream. Zach Bond probably is going to stay in Philly, but he's a superstar. I mean, he made a first team All-Pro this year. He's younger too, so that's probably far out of the realm of the Dolphins, but he's a very good player. So there's really no one else that's like Levante David's too old. Who else? Troy Reader, like I don't know how to feel about Troy Reader, but I don't know. Kaiser White, he's a great athlete, but I don't think that's what the Dolphins need. So yeah, Spillane, Bolton. Who else did we talk about? Greenlaw, and there was somebody else, wasn't there? Maybe that was it, and Zach Bond. But that's Zach. Just don't even think about it. The last category, which is corner, this is honestly kind of a sneaky. Other than offensive linemen, this is a sneaky need for the Dolphins. Storm Duck is like, I don't know if he showed enough for us to be like super confident. Kader Kohu, if he can stay in the position that he's good at, is great. He had a better year. It was still up and down, but I think he's fine at that position. But outside corner is a problem. I'm not sold on Duck. I'm not. Obviously, Cam Smith is just in the wind. So here's some of the names. Byron Murphy, who's expected to be obviously going to have a huge market. He's one of my favorite players in the NFL, so I had to put him on here. I love his game so much, and he's still a young player. I don't know why the Cardinals would ever trade him. I can't even remember what they did. It was for nothing. I love Byron Murphy. He's a great player. One of my favorite players in the league. Some other guys on here, Paulson Adebo out of Stanford. Young player, has dealt with some injuries, phenomenal in man coverage. Love Paulson Adebo. Would be a great fit in this system. Physical too. Nate Hobbs is another great player from the Raiders. I love his game. He's more of an inside player, but he's still a great corner. Maybe not the best fit, but I still love him. Akella Witherspoon would not be a bad pickup. He's a year removed from a great season. This last season was not as great. That's for sure. So I don't know. He's okay. He's a younger player. He's not my favorite. Excuse me. Sorry. There's people like Carlton Davis. I like Carlton Davis. I think he's a very good player. He's hurt all the time. So, and he's a little bit older. So yeah, I would say Byron Murphy would be a dream. Paulson Adebo, Nate Hobbs, Asante Samuel Jr. is another really good one. I forgot about him. Another great young player that would be a great fit in the scheme too. Yeah, so I would say, and Paulson Adebo. I think Paulson Adebo and Asante Samuel, I would say, are the 1 and 2 that are realistic and could really help the Dolphins. Paulson Adebo would be who could still be a Pro Bowler, and same thing with Asante Samuel Jr. So this is honestly not a bad free agent class if you're a Dolphins fan. Like all the position groups that we just went through, there's a lot of good young talent in there, and yeah, I think that's where they kind of need to target. Offensive line, I think, is the number one priority. So hopefully that they can get that going. And I'm excited about that, but we'll see. Oh, sorry. Excuse me. That's it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's gonna be an interesting offseason, that's for sure. And I'll see you guys in the next one.